What's going on, friends? Today we're going to take a look at some reasons of why you would want to get a crate engine. Now, if you're looking for a crate engine for a twin cam, you may have noticed that it can be very difficult to find, and we're going to talk about why. And also, I'm going to show you guys some options out there for actual crate engines, and they don't just involve one manufacturer. There are a multitude of reasons of why you'd want to replace with a crate engine rather than rebuilding your current motor. And one reason being is, unfortunately, if you've suffered a engine failure that has pretty much trashed your engine beyond anything recognizable or even possibly usable. If your cam chain tensioners came apart and ran through the motor, it can destroy everything, and that's one way you can get to that point. Another reason is just the ease and convenience of removing and replacing an entire motor. And then you have a spare motor. You can either rebuild this other motor on the side, or you can even sell it and recoup some of your money. And another reason for buying a brand new crate engine would be just the simple fact that buying a used motor can be a roll of the dice. The issue with used motors is that it was always running when it came out of the bike and it has X number of miles. But you can compression test it, you can turn it over, you can do anything you want to it, but you never truly know what you got until you get in the bike and get it fired up. So before we get to the engine options today, guys, please don't forget to drop a like on the video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, the first engine on my list today is not from S&S. It's actually from Ultima engines. Now, Ultima engines, I kind of got mixed feelings about Ultima engines. Either people have had very good luck with them, or they've completely failed sooner rather than later. Ultima is now offering a 113 cubic inch twin cam engine. This is only for 1999 to 2006 models. That's from the manufacturer. And they don't have a B motor. It's just for the A motor. Now, what they've done with this, they did a full Timken bearing bottom end. This thing has Molly pistons in it, Andrews 67H cam, billet, oil pump, and cam plate, and a hydraulic tensioner system. Now, this isn't a bad deal at all, really. The engine is running 10-to-1 compression, so it's going to be pump gas friendly, give you plenty of power, and they run from $48.99 to about $5,200, depending on the finish that you choose. Now, of course, these engines are not EPA compliant, but, you know, you're building a performance build, that's the last thing you're really thinking of. And these engines are going to produce roughly about 120 horsepower, about 120 foot-pounds of torque. So, not bad on the price, but like I said, Ultima has a really kind of a mixed bag when it comes to their reputation as far as reliability. But judging by the parts that went into this motor, I would have to tend to lean towards it's going to be pretty reliable, and they give you a pretty decent warranty on it. Now, the next engine is from S&S. This is S&S's T111. And what I like about the S&S engines is that they've taken a lot of the issues that the factory Harley-Davidson engine has, and they've corrected them and basically engineered them out. Now, the T111 engine is quite a bit more expensive. It's S&S quality, and they do ask a pretty stiff price for it. These engines start at about $7,000, so quite a big of a price jump from the Ultima engine. Now, the S&S T111 engine has 9.8-to-1 compression, which means it's going to be very friendly for use on pump gas. It also has a set of 585 easy start cams, so you don't need compression releases, and those cams are gear driven, which is a big plus on any twin cam engine. S&S uses their TC3 oil pump and cam plate setup, which is an awesome high volume oil pump. And this engine is going to net you about 115 horsepower and roughly 122 foot-pounds of torque. So this is a very powerful, good street-friendly engine if you're interested in a good crate motor for a stock replacement. Now, coming in a little bit cheaper than the S&S motor is the FuelMoto 124-inch Street Outlaw. This engine's going to run you about $6,500, but it's basically a hand-built S&S engine built in-house at FuelMoto for about $500 cheaper. Now, FuelMoto starts out with S&S's T-Series crankcases with a Timken bottom end. They use an S&S 3-piece crank. They have a gear-driven Easy Start 635 cam, and this motor, 10.7-to-1 compression, so it will still run on pump gas. You may or may not need a little octane booster, but it has S&S lifters, S&S roller rockers, S&S lifter blocks, S&S TC3 cam plate and oil pump. You get an 18-month warranty, and FuelMoto highly recommends that your complete drivetrain system is set up to handle 140 plus horsepower. But at $6,500, we're really getting away from stock and we're really moving up the line. FuelMoto knows how to build an engine, and they really produce some power. Now, if you like S&S motors and the T111 just isn't enough horsepower and displacement for you, there's always the S&S T124. Now, this engine starts out at about $7,000 and just goes up from there depending on what finish you choose on the motor. But now on the S&S T124, they get a 10.2 to 1 compression ratio, still very streetable. They use the same S&S 585 gear-driven cam and the TC3 oil pump and billet cam plate. The T124's added compression and displacement is going to net you 131 horsepower and roughly 133 foot-pounds of torque. Now we're really getting somewhere, and that's just a little bit of an upgrade in compression and displacement over the T111 for roughly the same price. Now, if you really got some deep pockets and you want to go completely insane, S&S has you covered with their T143 crate engine. Now, this crate engine is going to be about $10,000, but this crate engine can also produce 160 horsepower and 150 foot-pounds of torque. They use S&S's B3 cylinder heads, super stock cases, a 635 S&S Easy Start cam, of course, gear-driven cam system, and believe it or not, the compression on this engine is only 10.5 to 1. Now, I don't really think it's going to run on pump gas even at 10.5 to 1, but you can give it a shot and see what happens, and there's always octane booster. Now, maybe one of these high horsepower, high dollar crate engines really isn't your thing. You don't really intend on changing the engine, you don't need that much power, or you just like to have your work done at the dealer. Well, Harley-Davidson does have a long block program, and all you have to do is you take your motorcycle down to your dealership. They're going to pull your old motor out, and they're going to ship your left crankcase half off to the factory. Now, that is very important, and I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. While your left side crankcase is at the factory, they basically are building you a brand new engine, just a long block. So you're going to reuse all your covers, your valve covers, your rocker box. You're going to be reusing all of that. Your cam cover, that's all going to be reused. Now, the only catch is that the new engine does not come with cams. And they do that intentionally so you could technically go back with your old cams. But if you had that many miles on it, probably not a good idea. So you want to go ahead and upgrade to a set of cams. But while that long block comes back, it's a lot better than what you had stock. They put a Screamin Eagle lefty bearing in it. You get the Screamin Eagle cam bearings, Screamin Eagle lifters, and if you still have a 1999 to 06 model that had the spring tensioners in it, Harley-Davidson's going to upgrade that to a Screamin Eagle cam plate with the hydraulic tensioners, and you'll also get a Screamin Eagle oil pump as well. And if you have a 2007 to 2016 103, they're also going to put factory automatic compression releases in it. If you're sending an 88 in for a long block, you can upgrade that to a 95-inch or a 103. And if you have a 96-inch motor, you can go ahead and upgrade that motor to a 103 or a 110. Of course, at an additional cost. But if you look at the pricing chart here, it's really not all that bad to get a brand new long block back from Harley-Davidson. Now, of course, you're going to be doing this at the dealer, so there's going to be some labor charges and things like that. But it wouldn't nearly be as much as if you were having your engine completely rebuilt at the dealer. That's at the dealer only. If you were doing it at an independent shop, but they don't have a long block program, it wouldn't be nearly as much. So guys, about that left side crankcase half, that has your motorcycle's VIN number on it. And when you're changing an engine out, it's no longer a numbers matching motorcycle. So when you're doing an engine swap, if you're not doing the long block program and you're doing an engine swap with a crate motor, documentation is your friend. Document everything that was done to this bike. Keep all the receipts, keep all the paperwork for everything. This can really be a lifesaver later on down the road if you ever go to sell the motorcycle, or if you were to even get stopped and they checked your VIN number and they had the mind to look at the number on the engine and they go, hey, this doesn't match. that automatically screams stolen, especially with a used motorcycle or a police officer. So just make sure you keep your receipts and document everything that you've done, so that way you have a paper trail to prove that this is my bike, that is the motor that's supposed to be in the bike. So guys, looking at the prices of crate motors, you can tell pretty quickly that it is definitely cheaper to go ahead and pull your stock engine out and rebuild it. But like I say, it's a matter of convenience. If you break down in the middle of summer, you don't have time to really rebuild the engine. You can just order a new crate motor, get it here, boom, put it in, and you can still save your summer. But it comes at a cost. Convenience always comes at a cost. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, definitely rebuilding, but a convenient option is to go ahead and get a new engine and swap it out. And as you can see, you could really get some serious power out of these. And plus, these crate engines, they do have a warranty from anywhere to 1 to 2 years. I believe S&S probably has about the best warranty out there. So anyhow, guys, I hope this video really helped you out as far as saying you do have some options with a twin cam and getting a crate motor. They're not as vast and far and wide as with the Evo engine. Now, even Harley-Davidson does have a couple of crate engine offerings. They have the 120R, which is the Screamin Eagle 120 race motor, and then they have the ST, which is the street tune motor. And I've got a video on both of those engines, which I'll drop that link down in the description for you guys if you'd like to learn more about Harley-Davidson's crate engine offerings. But anyhow, guys, that's all I've got for you this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it showed you that with a twin cam, you do have some options out there, just not as many as an Evo, and they're pretty pricey with being a brand new engine. But anyhow, guys, you stay safe on the streets, ride smart, dodge those cars, and I'll catch you guys in next week's video. Thanks for watching.